The latest edition of Real Talk, where we put the real in real estate. And we've got our very own Todd Campbell from the Todd Campbell Farmers Agency. Todd, thank you
Hello.
for joining us this evening.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So I just shared this on my newsfeed a few minutes ago, and I said, well, this is not going to be one of our most positive talks, but it will be informative and it's extraordinarily impactful to all of us, whether we're actively in the real estate market or homeowners or vehicle owners. And so there's a lot that's gone on. We've been talking about how the impact of the catastrophic losses, specifically going to 2021 with, Snowmageddon, that we were going to feel the impact. We just didn't know when and what that was going to look like. But it's here. And
yay!
It's here. It's so fun. So, but Todd, you are our go-to at Red Branch, and I only refer your agency and specifically Matt Bird that is at your agency. Because being in the business for 20 years, I didn't really understand the ins and outs of insurance, partially probably because I didn't want to. But it wasn't until I met Matt where he really educated me on coverage, on the process, on claims, on what just doing even a health audit on current coverage, whether it was home or auto or renters or anything. And it was very enlightening and a little scary, because I think so many times people are writing coverage based on what they want the premium to look like versus what do we need to do and what do we need to make sure that you're properly insured with. And I appreciate you and your team and Matt for looking at it through that. It's like going into a car dealership. They're like, what do you want your payment to be? No. Like, don't give me that crap. Let's talk about the car.
That's right.
And so today, I think we're just really going to rip the Band-Aid off and talk about what's going on. So maybe if you just want to kind of give a couple minutes synopsis on what's gotten us here and what are the main things that are changing currently that we can be watchful of.
Sure. Well, the insurance industry, just like every other industry, has ups and downs. Okay. And when big weather happens and other factors like inflation, everyone knows about inflation these days. It affects everybody. And in the case of insurance, what does insurance do? It pays for stuff. It pays for stuff that breaks. It pays for stuff that gets damaged. Well, figuring out how to do that and then to actually do it costs a huge amount of money. And then when inflation hits, it costs even more money. Then we've got COVID happening, which killed supply and demand across the world and is still affecting everything. So that affects both auto and home insurance. So just basically, and honestly, we've never seen anything like what's going on right now. It's everything is more expensive. Everything is more expensive than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And it's not a little bit more, it's a lot more. And so all those things culminate for the insurance industry into it's impossible to make money on the premium side. We take $1 in premium and we pay out $1.20. Well, you can't have a business that'll survive when you do that. And, Texas, lucky us, we are the only state in the whole country that has every peril there is. Because we added earthquakes a few years ago. So we have wildfires, we have wind and hail, we have earthquakes, we have hurricanes, we've got it all. So
I would say that's well-rounded, Todd. That's how I want to say it.
Well-rounded is what we are in Texas, that's for sure. And so we already had those things, and now it all costs more. So when that happens, the insurance companies, all of the insurance companies, tighten up. They tighten up their underwriting appetite, which means what will they even take? What will they even offer coverage on? And then the stuff they will offer coverage on, they start cutting things out. It's a big shell game. And I know that's maybe a crass way to put it, but it's what it is. I mean, they say we've got to stop offering this so that we can continue to offer this. Because that's the only way we can continue to stay profitable. I mean, all these insurance companies they're for-profit companies. There's not a nonprofit insurance company out there. They're all for-profit. So to keep it going, they've got to show a profit, and they make money in all different ways, not just from premium,
Sure.
but that's the other side of the coin right now. SVB Bank, and I don't want to get too far into this, but it went under because of bad investments.
Sure.
Well, insurance companies are very similar to that. They've got this surplus of money that they must keep by law. Well, they invest that money and try to make money on it. Well, if they invested it wrong, they're not only losing money on the premium side, they're losing money on the investment side. So, and a lot of companies are in that boat right now. And so everything affects insurance, and everyone buys insurance. So it affects us all. So in the case of real estate and home insurance, especially here in North Texas, it's a case of, coverage, types of coverage are being squeezed. They're offering less, and they're doing that because if they don't, then their only option is to raise premiums, and nobody wants that.
Sure.
So to keep premiums somewhat level, they've got to reduce coverage in ways, or make coverage optional and not included in the package, that kind of thing. So that's why talking to your insurance agent, you talk to Matt, and Matt will tell you what's going on this year. What are your exposures? Our job in my agency is to, number one, apologize. We apologize a lot. And number two, scare people.
Yeah.
And that's for a good reason, because they need to know. Yeah. It's much better to be scared in a phone conversation than it is out in front of your house that's half knocked down, and then you have to figure out what the coverage is going to pay for. That's the wrong time to figure it out. So it's much better for us to scare you and then tell you how to fix it. So, that's kind of what we do.
Well, and I think that's what's most important, because again, there's a lot of things that we're having to reevaluate. We talk about inflation, and we discuss this all the time is, look, there are certain things that people don't bat an eye. I mean, you still go and pay $8 for your cup of coffee that used to cost $4. Yeah. You go out to eat and you're not getting out of there for a couple for less than $100 for a marginal meal. There's a lot of things. Gas has kind of shot up a little bit again, but people are still driving, because trust me, I screamed at half of them today. So you go through all of that. There are things we don't bat an eye because it's just our natural way of living. But when it comes to the major assets or protections in our life, which insurance, the cost of a mortgage, even the interest rates of a car, those kind of things, we squabble, but then we go and we're always stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. And so what we can do as a team, that's what I was asking you earlier, was how do we tee up our clients, whether they're sellers or they're buyers? Relate this to the actual real estate transaction side. I mean, we all have insurance, but this is real talk in real estate is what can we do to help put everybody in the driver's seat, and instead of being caught on the other end. And so we kind of discussed as a listing agent, knowing, hey, I'm working with an 11-year-old roof, and I'm calling you guys, Todd, and you're saying, hey, the likelihood is on a new policy, they're not going to have replacement coverage on that roof.
Right.
And so that could mean the lender says it's uninsurable, then therefore we're not going to lend because there's no replacement coverage.
Right.
There's also the cost factor that a buyer is going to have to consider and say, okay, if I have to cash pay for a roof, and I'm looking at with the rate of inflation and labor and cost of materials, it's $15,000 to $20,000 out of pocket. I don't know that I can do this. So as a listing agent, I can go to my sellers and say, hey, by putting in this $15,000 roof, the return on the investment is a wider buyer pool. And if that 15 is going to net you 50, then let's put on the roof, you know, and there are phenomenal roofers out there that will take payment at closing. So at least there's, a cash initiative there.
Absolutely.
And then as a buyer's agent, understanding and looking at that seller's disclosure, or running a clue report with your insurance agent or somebody else and saying, okay, it looks like we've got a 9 or 10-year-old roof here. I know a lot of agents are going to be concerned because we're back in multiple offers to sit there and press the listing agent. But this is when you call your insurance agent, you have the conversation with the lender if they're going to have a problem with how the insurance is going to read. And then you have a very transparent conversation with your buyer, and you say, you're going to have to budget for the cost of replacement eventually,
Right.
just like the rest of your systems in your house. We don't call you guys when we need to replace our AC.
Mm-hmm.
We don't call it. Well, some people do call and then
Yeah, they do.
You don't cover your foundation.
That's when we say we're sorry.
We're sorry.
Yeah.
But there's so many things that you just budget for replacement. It's the cost of home ownership. And if we have to bring the roof specifically into that element, that now that's a budgeted item depending on the age of the roof, then that's what we just need to do. And so we were talking about that. What does that look like? Let's explain what that replacement coverage is and what's changed on that. Because I think that's the biggest hot topic on the real estate transaction side that we're going to be affected with.
It's a hot topic for, I mean, the roof, everyone in North Texas, that's all they care about is the roof, right? Because what's guaranteed in North Texas? A hailstorm. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's going to come. I mean, we've replaced 1-year-old roofs over and over again because they were new last year and then another big hailstorm hits. And so everyone's concerned with that. So, and I think everyone needs to know replacement cost coverage on the roof has not always been available. It's a modern thing.
Sure.
And I think it was done to be competitive. The companies started offering more coverage a long time ago to become more competitive. Well, that's really coming back to bite them now, especially in North Texas through Oklahoma, which is one of the worst weather areas in the whole country when it comes to wind and hail. They're realizing that they just can't continue to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So when the roofer puts a 30-year roof on your house, it's not going to last 30 years in Texas, in North Texas. No. It just isn't. And so no insurance company, they're cutting down on the amount of time, like you mentioned, that they're going to offer retail value coverage, replacement cost coverage on the roof. So, and for a lot of companies, it's down to 10 years. If the day your roof turns 10 years old, no more replacement cost coverage on it. So, and that's pretty good. 10 years for a roof. That ain't bad in DFW, right?
Until it's no longer covered.
Right. Yes. So, and when that happens, unfortunately, they go to a depreciated loss settlement. And again, I don't want to get too far into this, but all that means is you're going to get a lot less money for your roof from the insurance company. Everything else is going to be covered at replacement cost, just not the roof. And honestly, when it comes to the mortgage, they're probably not going to balk at that.
Okay.
But, when it comes to negotiating your deal, the roof should absolutely be a conversation, especially if it's in the 10-year-old range. And that's one of the questions that insurance agents ask when they're doing a new policy is, how old is the roof? Yep. And half the people say, oh, I don't know. I just bought the house 3 years ago and they said it was however many years old. So I just don't even know. Okay. I mean, and that's a fair answer because you didn't put the roof on. I mean, if you have no way to know, but the problem is the insurance company, they do have a way to know. There's production dates printed on the underside of the shingles. Yeah. So there are ways to find out. Plus, they can just look at roofs, and you can look at anyone can look at a roof and say, "Man, that roof is beat to hell."
There's a lot of granular loss. Yeah, there's barely anything
shiny,
left on that.
Shiny up there because all the grains are gone.
Yeah.
And so as an agent, I would say look at the house through the eyes of an insurance company. Yep. What are the risks? Is there paint chipped all over the place? Is the brick wall have a big crack down the side? Is the roof in bad shape? Those kinds of things, and just throw it back in the seller's court to address. Because nowadays the problem, if you don't do that up front, is your buyer may get in the house. They've got an insurance policy. They got the keys and they're happy about buying furniture. Then they get a notice from their insurance company that says, we inspected the house and it doesn't meet our eligibility requirements. We're canceling the policy in 30 days. But they're already in the house. And at that point, it's over. I mean, they've got to pay for whatever it is making them ineligible. And that is the worst spot that any agent wants their client to be in. So, and that's where we can help. That's why, and while you were speaking, I was thinking to myself, this is why this whole dynamic is why you need an agent and not a 1-800 number. Yep. Because you can't have these types of conversations about claims with 1-800 number without it possibly affecting you, especially if you're talking about the house that you own and that they insure. If you're talking to a 1-800 number, they're going to open a claim if you're talking about claims, which goes on your clue report, right? So this is why you need an advocate in the form of an agent who is the go-between between you and the company.
Yeah.
So, if there's anything that a real estate agent can do, is have an agent who's a trusted partner, and then be real about the condition of the roof and ask, are there any pitfalls that, you don't need to know, you just need to know to ask. So ask your insurance agent, what are the risks here? Here's the situation. What do you think? Sure. And we can do all kinds of stuff. We can give you, real insurance underwriting appetite information that is applicable to everybody, and especially the house that you're trying to do a deal on, and help you go back. We want to help you get the deal.
Yeah.
We want the deal to go through. We're not trying to kill it, but we may be able to provide information that can help you negotiate a compromise between both parties so that you can get the deal done.
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing is again, looking at the big picture, especially entering into a deal. I always talk to my clients before we even get in a car and go look at houses is cost of acquiring a property, because there's a lot of different costs. We have the costs in a transaction. We have the cost in obtaining financing. You have the cost in obtaining insurance coverage, using an agent. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know what's going on, but they should. But there might be a lawsuit going on with the DOJ and real estate companies at the national level and NAR, because they're questioning how our compensation is done. And that's because for so long, realtors would sit there and say, hey, use me. I'm a buyer's agent. It's free to work with me. It is not free. Nothing is free, but unfortunately we got ourselves into this predicament. Now we need to get ourselves back out.
Yeah.
And so I talk about cost of acquisition. If a seller isn't willing to compensate, or a listing agent isn't offering cooperative compensation, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Guess what? If we get a really advantageous sales price on the home because they're not able to sell it, so you get the house for less, but you still have to pay my compensation, it's still a net positive. So looking at the big picture of the cost of acquiring that property, and then going into it and saying the same thing. Now let's look at it under the lens of cost of ownership, of maintaining, or maybe cosmetically improving the property. If you go to a house, everything is great. They've replaced all the major systems. The windows are brand new, energy efficient. Foundation work was done 6 years ago. The HVAC is 3 years old, but you got a 12-year-old roof. Hey, the net positive is you might not get, fantastic loss coverage, replacement cost coverage on your roof, but the AC, the windows, and the foundation's done. And those three things alone could be $50,000.
It's still a great deal to get into. Absolutely.
Correct.
And that's it's easy to get mired down by all this negativity and on the insurance side. There's nothing fun about insurance. That's what I was saying before. We try to find something that's fun about this, and it's when our clients get paid, that's fun. Yeah. But talking about it's no fun. So, but absolutely, we tell people the risks, but also let them know that you're also buying a great house in a great neighborhood. Yeah. There is no house that's perfect. It doesn't exist.
No.
So this is just a caveat. This isn't a deal breaker by any means. And we explain that to the client as well.
Well, and I think that's what's amazing, because somebody doesn't just go to you and you talk and the gloom and doom. You say, well, tell me about the house. So let me look it up, and oh my gosh, that's a fantastic neighborhood. Absolutely. And I know Matt's done that a bajillion times, and he's like, oh man, that's beautiful. Look at those floors. You guys are an extension of the process for us. And that's why it's so important, because you can sit there and say, hey, yes, you do need to know that the roof being older is going to, affect your premiums a little bit. And it's also going to change the coverage on replacing the roof.
Right.
But if everything else is fantastic, you guys just need to understand what your exposure is here. Yeah. But it's still a great house. I'm just giving you the realistic expectation that if and when it comes time to replace it, you might be coming out of pocket for the majority of it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an asset you're going to keep long term, and if it's in a great location, you're going to be fine on it financially, even if you have to pay for a roof out of your pocket. It's going to be okay.
And that's what you were saying earlier. Yeah, you can go to Arizona where you don't have these issues, but and not to say that Arizona is not great, but it's not North Texas, and you're going to pay 30 to 40% more for a house in Arizona. you don't have the same thriving economy.
Your front yard's going to be lava rocks. I mean,
hey, if that's the thing that you like, but at the same time, not for me.
Right.
But the whole point is again, looking at the big picture. And that's why it's so important to have a realtor that can help you do it, an insurance agent that can help you do it, and a lender. Because that's the other thing too, is a lot of times it's the lender that's providing that insurance referral.
Yeah.
One, because again, realtors don't mess with it, don't understand it, and everything else. And then it's a part of getting an insurance binder to get the financing approved. And so, making sure that you're working with a lender that understands those things too, because there are some that are just trying to get them in because of their debt to income ratio. So, hey, we want the bare minimum coverage on these things, highest deductible, all of this other stuff to make sure that we can get the numbers to work in the underwriting process.
I think that's a very important thing to bring up. And I want to say one thing about that. Like, that happens all the time. I mean, people have that income ratios that come up. Anyone who's done a real estate transaction has run into a deal. It's not perfect. I mean, it's fine. And there's ways to fix it. But, when a non-insurance agent tries to sell insurance to a client, that's the problem, because they don't fully understand the product. I would never talk real estate contracts. Never. I would never do it. I would never talk mortgage products, even though I'm familiar with them. I don't have a license for that. And I would never even try to sell it. I would say, oh, you're working with your lender, you're working with your agent, you need to go talk to them about that. And so what we find is when, someone besides the insurance agent is trying to sell the insurance policy, what they sell is price. That's all they sell, because that's the only thing they truly understand. So they go with the lowest price, like you mentioned. And, we need this to be $11 a month in order to get the deal done. So you got to get it to $11, something ridiculous. So we raise the deductibles. But we have to tell the client, like, you got to understand, we've got to put this back right after closing. Otherwise you will have no coverage. You'll just have a bill. It won't do anything for you. So we really tread lightly on those things. We never want to kill the deal, but we always make sure that the client understands in dollars what is happening here in order for them to get in the house. So, and a lot of people just don't do that. And that's where people get into trouble.
Well, what's really interesting. So I went through the process myself in summer of 21 and, been working with Matt for a while at that point. And so, I said, okay, I want to go through this process blindly and quote me what you would normally want me to have coverage wise. And then I got a quote through another broker that has carriers that they're looking at. And so it was a big difference in the price between you guys and the other one that was quoted. And so I said, okay, walk me through this one. And talking to the broker on the other side, they really couldn't articulate the coverage. And so they were kind of walking through some things and doing that kind of stuff, but they're a lender's choice because they help shop it to get it to where they need to be.
Make it cheap.
So then I went, And so I went to Matt and I said, okay, here's this, give me apples to apples. And he said, and then explain to me where I'm covered and where I'm exposed. And so I was horribly undercovered on the policy. It was acceptable to the limitations, but once you started walking through, what Matt quoted me was the Louis Vuitton package, and what I got was the lunch sack on the other one. It wasn't even a purse. It wasn't even a bag, Todd. It was a paper lunch sack. And so what I told Matt was, Matt, you know me well enough. I don't need the Louis, but can you give me something give me Samsonite, right? It's strong, it's respectable. Give me that. And so when we worked on certain things based on the house itself, where my house is located, different things that have already been improved, my assets that I wanted to make sure were covered appropriately, all that stuff. I mean, I might have been $250, $300 off on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I'm sitting there and going, I have the coverage from the company that I know I can call, that you're going to advocate for me, do all of these other things, and I get this top tier coverage versus the stripped down version, which was only saving me like $300.
Right.
And it wasn't even, I didn't even bat an eye. And I understand people shop insurance all the time because they're not with anybody that they have loyalty with. They've never had that experience. And so for you guys, I mean, Matt looks at my coverage before the renewal comes, tells me if I need to modify anything. And then he says, hey, it's coming. Here's what this looks like. I don't even look at it. I just know it is what it is, but I'm safe. And that's just a part of the equation. And I appreciate that that's what you guys do. Okay. We've got our first comment. It just happens to be my biggest fan, my mother. Lunch sacks are fine as long as you realize what you're getting. Unfortunately, most consumers don't until they file a claim.
Yeah.
And
so true.
That's it. And we're not disparaging any insurance companies, just like I won't disparage, real estate brokerages or anything else, but they're not all equal.
No, they're not. And honestly, there's lots of good insurance companies. We talk good about all sorts of companies because we see what they do and we see what the bad ones do too. Yep. So, to me, it's much more about the agent putting your policy together because all these companies, at the end of the day, they all kind of offer the same thing.
Yeah.
Like I tell people when you see a TV commercial about an auto policy and they've got all these bells and whistles that they can put on accident forgiveness and new car coverage.
Yep.
And every insurance company has all of that. We just don't sell it because to me, it's a bad value. Yeah. Why would you pay for things that are going to go wrong in the future up front? So it's like, and it's same thing on the home, a little less so on the home, but all insurance companies have tons of optional things you can put on there. But the problem is nobody even knows. And so if the agent doesn't tell you what you can buy, then you're just going to say, okay, I guess that'll work, when you could have bought coverage that you are actually interested in, but just didn't even know about it. So, it really just comes down to even inside of one company, one agent to another, they're just going to do it different.
Yeah.
So it's really about finding that person that you trust, like you've been talking about, about your team as a real estate agent, your loan officer, your insurance person, your title. Yeah. Who do you trust? Who do you know will get the job done? That's who matters to the client at the end of the day. So that's a big deal.
And really, I don't want to say I apologize and I'm so sorry all the time. I want to, and I will tell you, when anybody asks me, when my clients ask me, because they do ask me because they trust me, even though sometimes a lot of others will defer to a lender, which is nothing wrong. But when a client asks me, I will refer them based on quality, not price. Where, like you said, on the lending side, sometimes it's a price situation and how they're referring. And so I will literally text them and say, this is the only person I will refer. They will not be the cheapest, but they will cover your booty when truly needed. And so understand, and I use it as, this is Nordstrom, not Walmart. And I use that reference. And I have clients that will literally beat somebody up over a penny and still decide to go with you guys. And because it's the way I sell it and say, hey, if something happens, I don't want you coming to me to sit there and say, well, now I've got to deal with this and my insurance company's not covering it. I'm always looking for your back because you are a client for a lifetime, not a transaction. Sherry again said, honestly, I'll venture to say not all agents know what they can offer, understand a policy enough to explain it, just like realtors and lenders find the right professional partner. And I think that's what this all is. There's tons of insurance agents. There are like 165,000 licensed agents in the state of Texas. I might just happen to know that. I will tell you.
I'm thinking about getting my license. Maybe, I'll add one more to that. Right?
Yeah, it's fine. You let me know. I am happy to be a resource for you. But we just heard the statistic on the realtor side, 33% of agents, and this was 2023 stats, 33% have been licensed for less than 3 years.
Wow.
3 years. So a third of the realtors that are out there have been licensed for less than 3 years. So they haven't even been licensed long enough to see a 10-year-old roof on some of these homes. They've never seen a market, unlike the ones that we saw entering into COVID. And so, and even the negotiation side of it is completely different. They have not been scarred for a lifetime going through the different actual negotiations. It's been hostage negotiation for the last 2 years. And so now we enter in where, again, people are going to say, well, great. Now we're entering into multiple offers again. Yes, the market is heated up in most of our territories in North Texas. And that's a conversation too. Okay, this is not for the buyer's agent to necessarily hammer the listing agent. You have to do this and you have to do that and blah, blah, blah. Especially when, my last listing a couple weeks ago, we sat there and things weren't necessarily brand new, but we offered full transparency. I had a roof inspection, an HVAC inspection, and a foundation inspection on the house because I knew it'd go in 2 days and for multiple offers. I wanted buyers to have transparency in what they were looking at buying. Agents were literally, you know what I got in return? Agents going, is there something wrong? Why would you have these inspections? Why would you do this? I want to know more about the foundation. And I'm like, whoa. I'm giving you transparency.
Yeah, I've eliminated roadblocks. They're gone now.
That's gone, but they're freaking out that this is unnerving their buyer. Well, guess what? You're one of 15 offers so far, and this is now a limit. I'm going, okay, you're going down to the bottom of the list because you're not stable for us to go through a transaction with because you don't understand. I gave you a gift.
Right.
But on the other side, there are a lot of listing agents that unfortunately don't go through that transparency process. And so it goes back to the buyer's agent having the information to talk to the buyer and the buyer's insurance agent so they understand before they make the offer what they feel confident in doing so.
Absolutely.
So, okay, well, let's talk about 2021. It's the year, you would think 2020 is the one we would never forget, but for you and the insurance industry, or at least in North Texas, 2021 is kind of ingrained in our memories just a little bit. What happened in February of 21, Todd?
It was an ugly time. And yes, and going back to 2020, it's shocking. Insurance takes years to catch up to actually what's going on around here. But, in 2020, all the insurance companies gave people money back, right, on their auto because COVID just shut the roads down. No one was driving and they were still collecting all that money. 2021 comes and the most epic freeze I've ever seen in my life, let alone my career, hit all of Texas. Basically from Austin to Dallas up through Amarillo.
Yeah.
It froze, right? And no one had power. And I have so many clients we've paid 6 figures plus to, and a lot of them over 200,000. Yeah. Full remodels of the house from top to bottom, from left to right, full remodel. Yeah. These old houses that have the pipes running through the ceiling, they all burst, all of them. And it was raining in every room in the house and we replaced all of it's covered. It's all covered. And so when that happened, I've just never seen anything like it from a claims handling perspective. Our claims people, the manpower just wasn't there. There was no way to handle it. Yeah. So they were literally wiring people money based on their word without even seeing anything. Like, oh, you can't go in your house because the whole thing's flooded and you have no place to go. Okay, and so tell me a little bit more about the damage. Okay, we're going to put $25,000 in your bank account, and here's $25,000. That'll get you started. And then when we get someone out there in 3 weeks, we'll figure out the rest. That's what was going on. We were, when you are displaced from your house after a loss, well, you have to live somewhere, right? So there's money in your policy to help you do that. Well, there was no place to live because all the houses were taken. We were putting people in RVs. Hey, we'll get an RV permanently hooked up and we'll pay for that and then rent this RV and you can go live there because there's no houses. There's no apartments. There's no nothing. And this is the closest, best thing we can find that's anywhere near where you live. So here's an RV for you. Hope that works. It was that kind of thing that was going on. And it went on and on and on. The settlement of these claims didn't go away in 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people probably are still putting the finishing touches on their houses, because who's going to make all the cabinets? The cabinet makers are already behind before the freeze hit, right? Well, now you got to make cabinets for all these other houses in addition to all the houses being built. So long story short, it was by a mile the biggest weather incident I've ever seen. And that includes Hurricane Harvey in 2017, which was massive. It just obliterated houses in a way we've just never seen before. And it hit insurance and it hit the reinsurers. And I always try to not get too far into it, but there's insurance companies that insure insurance companies, and they paid out millions of dollars. And they don't like when they have to pay out. Those reinsurance companies, they don't like that. So when they have to pay out, things change, and premiums must go up, and coverage must come down, because we've got to eliminate risk. That's the way they look at it. We got to eliminate risk, and then inflation hit.
But wait, there's more.
Right. It's this triple whammy of COVID, Texas weather, inflation, interest rates. It's just one thing after the other that all affect insurance. And I'm not talking about just home insurance. I'm talking about all insurance.
Yeah.
Commercial insurance, home insurance, everything. It affects health insurance. Yep. I mean, because they have costs too, and don't even get started on health insurance. I mean, that's a whole other ballgame, but it's the cost of everything has skyrocketed in every way. A claims adjuster has to get into a car and drive it to a house to look at it, and that costs money. Well, now the gas costs more, and the car costs more, and repairs cost. I mean, it's the whole 9 yards. It all just costs more. And nobody likes to hear me say that stuff, because nobody likes paying for insurance. And my friends just tell me, man, they're just gouging us. And
it's a racket.
Insurance is a big scam. And I'm not saying insurance is great, but I am saying it's great when you really need it, and so all that to say, when it comes back down to buying insurance, you don't have to know this as a real estate agent. You don't have to know all this.
Sure.
You just have to understand that things are different now, and be able to just express that to a client so that they can talk to their insurance agent about it. So,
well, and here's the deal. You're not paying for insurance for every day. You're paying for insurance when something bad really happens, right? And you need to be bailed out. And luckily, most people don't go through big stuff every few months. I know tons of people that probably even forgot 2021 snow freeze Mageddon even occurred, because they've slept since then and it's been 2 years, but you haven't forgotten. I'm sure you still have some nightmares from the whole process.
All I can say is it's just shocking what the money that was paid out was shocking. I think farmers said after it was all said and done, they paid out like $2.59 in claims money for every dollar in premium they collected. That doesn't happen. When a bad weather year happens, it's $1.50 for every buck that we took in. So this is well beyond. I mean, the tornado that hit North Dallas in 2019.
Yep.
That was a big thing that happened.
Yeah.
That was nothing compared to the freeze. It was nothing. And these hailstorms happen. They're nothing. They're blips compared to the freeze. So everyone's still adjusting to that. But all that to say, 2021 was awful. 2022, we have inflation. It's still affecting us now. It will get better. Things will get better. It's not doom and gloom for the rest of time. It's going to turn around. We're going to have some light weather years. We eventually will. This year's not been so bad.
No.
So hopefully everyone's knocking on wood right now. We won't have many more hailstorms. Hail season ends at the end of June, basically.
Yeah.
We just get through that time and not have big weather, then things will stabilize, and coverage will come back. More options will come back.
Sure.
Price will ease. So I think if everyone just holds on and prays to their higher power, then they can that we can avoid some weather, then we'll all get through this. And it'll be fun.
Unless your roof is 9 years old, and then
then
you hope that you get a hailstorm.
Crack open that vodka bottle we were talking about. I think.
Yes, no, and those are the things. But here's what I will say is, hearing through all of those, through 2019 through 2021, there was a consistent message or a theme that was going through, and that there were some insurance carriers that were good to their customers, and there were some that were not. And I think that was the biggest thing that I heard unified with you guys and with farmers, was that the claims process, even if the money amount was equitable. I remember seeing houses that were just sitting there with construction fencing that weren't touched for a year, where they were covered with one insurance carrier, and then one next door was already completely renovated and done, and they were able to move back in. Which
is senseless. It shouldn't be like that. The coverage is what it is. It's spelled out. I mean, the lawyers spent a lot of time writing that insurance contract. It's all spelled out. Yes. The adjuster just has to apply it to the situation. So there shouldn't be months and months of, I don't know. And I'll tell you another quick story about the freeze. Like, everyone has a pool in Texas. Well, lots of people
the pool coverage.
Okay.
Yes.
So there was a question when this thing hit. I remember it very vividly in February. Is pool equipment covered? Well, I don't know. Well, let's look at the policy. I mean, this happened behind the scenes, and because everyone's sprung a leak. If your power went out, then it sprung a leak. It's just plastic pipes, right? PVC pipes. Well, we can't find any place in our policy where we excluded it. Yeah.
It's covered.
It's all covered. And we paid it. We paid it for everyone. And it happened all over the place. And that's not a huge fix. I mean, it is PVC pipe. You can go down to Home Depot and get PVC pipe and get a guy to install it. But when you've got thousands of homes that you got to do this to, it adds up. And it adds up on top of an already big mess. So, but that's the kind of thing, like, it didn't take us forever. There was a review by the company. Yes, it's covered because it's not excluded. That was literally what happened.
But there were companies that did exclude it and said, what you going to do?
Yeah.
And that's, again, the difference there. Do you want to sit there and spend the amount of money you are, maybe you're saving a few $100 with a carrier on a yearly basis. Again, I go back to, I challenge you on one good night out. You could sit there and spend that money that you're saving with carrier A versus carrier B, which being you guys. But understand, when you're sitting there and you are emotionally distraught, physically distraught, and now financially distraught on what you're going to do, and your insurance carrier says, come after me, bro.
Sorry. Yeah. And that's a great example. You're talking about one good night out a year is the difference. So you don't get to go to Albernays that one night. You have to go to Chips Burgers and get a burger that night, but you get great coverage on your home. I mean, that's a great way to put it. It's, do you want a bad day or do you want a bad life because you're financially devastated over it?
No, that's what we were talking about. There are certain things that people don't bat an eye, and we're constantly stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Mm-hmm. Gas has gone up again. People are still driving. Your coffee is $8. That used to be $4. Even going and buying a pair of jeans that used to be $50 and you're paying $120. Mm-hmm. I mean, we still do it because of vanity and everyday utility.
Yeah.
Versus going, well, I don't want to pay for something that I don't know that's actually going to happen. It's the instant gratification effect.
That's right. And insurance is completely intangible. And that's the problem. That's why I said earlier, we try to scare people first. So that, because we have to get people to feel, or at least try to feel what financial devastation might feel like. Oh, but here's the solution to it.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is emotion. I mean, it's emotional to buy a house.
Yep.
You get emotionally attached to the house. It's really hard to get emotional about your insurance.
Except when you paint the pictures, Todd, in which you guys can.
That's right.
It's always painting a narrative that people can understand. I've had, and yes, Sherry, we do need pants. Oh, I've had people that their homes have been devastated by a tornado. I've had people that have had homes devastated by a flood. I've had people that have had a house physically burned down to nothing and
That's
lose
awful.
everything.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you go, that's something somebody is never going to forget. But at least if they know what they've been paying towards is going to protect the future rebuilding.
Yes.
Gosh, that is amazing. And you don't want to say, well, gosh, if you ever go through a life devastating situation, you'll kiss your insurance agent. But unfortunately, that's where you guys are is having to deal with that. And on another note, I mean, obviously, auto, there are more frequent accidents that occur, but they're much lower end if they're just fender benders and things of that nature.
Right.
It's not the same demonstrative effect
Correct.
of your home being taken from you, your family being displaced, you not having that roof over your head. If you have children, if you have pets, everything else, it's horrific.
Yes,
it's absolutely horrific. And so again, I don't try to scare my clients. What I try to do, I leave you guys to scare them.
That's right.
But I do tee you up. I tee up my lender in the same capacity and say, look, it's not apples to apples, and you need to understand what you're getting into. And then you need to understand your insurance coverage. And then, let's talk about your taxes, because your lender doesn't understand the capacity in which your taxes are going to change.
Right.
In fact, the seller's not even fully disclosing what that's going to look like, and understanding what that's going to do for them. As realtors, unfortunately, we have to wear 27 hats. You are not a professional outside of being a realtor, but you have to bring up the dialogue of where their exposure is across the situation. The easiest part to reduce the exposure for your clients, though, on the insurance side, is to align with somebody like you guys. So we've got 15 minutes left when you're having a fantastic time talking about gloom and doom. It goes by quickly, and I think we've stunned the audience this evening in comments. I think they're all just going, "Excuse me, what?" But let's talk about again. I think some of the stuff you talked about inspections. So inspections are nothing new. But we're seeing tightening up across the board. We're seeing tightening up on underwriting with lenders. We're seeing tightening up and underwriting with insurance coverage. So what's going on with inspections?
So just to pull the curtain back on insurance, the agent who does the quote, they have binding authority. Okay, that means they can write the policy. They don't have to check with anybody. They can write a policy and get you closed, and it's all good. Well, at different time, when underwriting is loose, when things are good, they don't even inspect every house. And when I say inspect, the insurance company hires a third party to inspect every house that is written. And they do it at various times. It could be a month after the closing happened. It could be within 3 days of issuing the policy before the closing has happened. It's just all over the road, depending on what part of town it's in. So, and like I said, when things are loose, there's been times when farmers didn't even inspect anything. And then they maybe sprinkled a couple in. They've made us re-inspect homes during bad times. Homes that have been insured with us for 5 years, they've made us go out and re-inspect them. So there's all sorts of things that happen. But today, all homes get inspected by every company because everyone's losing money. So they're trying to make sure everyone's meeting their underwriting appetite. So they're looking, and when they inspect things, if there's one missing shingle, they flag it, and you got to fix it. If there's a tree that's touching the roof, you got to cut that tree. You got to cut it back 3 feet or more away from the roof. If there's debris in the backyard, they'll cancel the policy. If the debris is up against the fence, not even next to the house, but if there's debris back there, and by debris, I mean, your old weight bench with a bunch of lumber and then a bunch of old busted chairs that you just didn't throw out yet, but they're still back there. If that stuff's piled up, and they'll cancel the policy. They're doing things like this. They're even looking at, the underwriters are even using the Google Maps satellite view to look down on a house. They've been sending letters about this tree's too close to the house. Well, did you re-inspect it? Well, we saw it on the Google Maps view. And, there's all sorts of neighborhoods around DFW that have mature trees, and you can't even see the house from the satellite view. It's just all trees.
Yeah.
And then they'll flag it. I mean, that's what we're dealing with now. That's never happened before. So inspection, and like I said, these things are happening after closing. We're getting you through closing. So, and then the customer gets a letter from the company. They said, we're going to cancel my policy in 30 days. Oh, no. We just need a couple of pictures. Do this, take a couple of pictures, send it to us. We'll get the cancellation removed. So that's what's going on. But like I said, and it just goes back to why you need an agent who's looking out for you and your client, because it happens all the time. After closing is when it happens. And so how that situation is handled is extremely important to how they feel about you and your lender and the insurance agent and everyone else involved in the real estate transaction. You don't want them feeling like, wow, I got in this house and then it was a complete disaster.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that can happen, because then you're talking about clients for life. That's what kills clients for life, a bad experience after. And guess who talks to your client after? I do.
Yeah.
I'm the one who talks to him, and my team is the one that talks to him. So the way it's handled on the back end is very, very important for your reputation. So you need to know who's doing the insurance.
Well, and I will, speak to that, because what spurred my conversation with Matt was the fact that I had clients that closed and had an arduous process getting to the closing table. And then they got a letter saying they're going to cancel the coverage. And it, was with you guys. They've stayed with you guys this whole time. It was the one where I called you from the closing table and I needed the flood insurance.
I remember.
Yes. And then that deal ended up busting. And we had to go back. And so it was a lot. So this poor couple had been through a lot, and they were like, what's going on? What are we doing? Now we're going to have our insurance covered. But you guys were on top of it and got the policy reinstated and stayed on top of the whole process. And there were some shrubs that were too close to the house.
It's not even that big a deal. Yeah.
No, it's not, but they were intending on ripping them out anyways, but they also had just a very traumatic experience getting to that table. And then they're like, no, we no longer live in a flood zone, and now our insurance is getting canceled.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it just piles on.
No, but the way you guys handled it, and then I got with Matt and I said, walk me through this process, which is why I opened this dialogue a couple of months ago of what's happening. And I said, we've got to be ahead of the game. Like, I need to be more well-versed in understanding what are those things when we're looking at homes. Hey guys, just FYI, even if the seller doesn't do it, you're going to need to trim back those tree branches. Hey, those bushes are too close, to the foundation, and they're going to have to go. Yeah. And so again, it's the takeaway effect that burns people. If I go into it and point out all the things they have to get taken care of, then they're okay.
Yeah.
That expectation has been set. So, whether it's on the buyer's agent side or the listing agent side, what we can do again on the listing agent side is to go back and say, hey, we got tree branches, we got things touching the roof. Guys, let's just eliminate that. That's something easy that we can do. We want to remove the friction during the inspection, process and everything else. So we just need to be better at opening our eyes and looking at everything. And then we can help each other kind of navigate this process a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist or an insurance expert even to look at a house and say, there's something that's risky there. I mean, I'll give you an example. We wrote a home over in Oak Cliff in East Kessler, and there's a bunch of big hills over there.
Yep.
And a lot of those hills have stairways on them, right?
Yep.
That come down the property. Well, insurance companies see stairways as liability issues. People could fall down stairways, right?
Yep.
So they need rails. So if you go up to a house, and I've seen lots of houses that get remodeled and they put a new stairway in up the front yard to the house on a hill, and there's no rail on the stairs.
Yep.
Well, that's a potential cancellation of insurance. If it's 3 feet or more, and it's not even written in black and white in the policy. It's totally up to the underwriter looking at the case. Yeah. They could say, I don't like that. Cancel. 30-day notice, unless you get a rail put on. And we've had to have those conversations more than once about rails with stairs and just things like that. So at sidewalks that are cracked and they're lifted like this, they'll cancel your policy for that because someone could trip.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that there's a difference between the structure being harmed and then there's a difference with a person being harmed
Right.
on the property.
Yeah.
And so you guys are looking at it from every stinking angle, and it is a lot. But again, going back to the education piece, that's what we can do. Again, I get this is not a sexy topic right now. There are a lot of people that will revisit it. I've had a couple of texts saying, I don't even know how to comment, but I'm scared. As we're sitting here, and it's not to be scary, but it's to be, okay, look, Peggy Johnson, yeah. Todd, how did you say insurance agent can handle situation when insurance co-inspects after closing wants to cancel because of the roof?
Well, it depends on the situation. A lot of times roof repair, a minor roof repair won't cost that much. You can call Mr. Handyman and they can come put new shingles on. If you've got a couple of shingles missing or a couple of shingles that are peeling, which they look for, the shingles need to be flat. They can't be all peeled up like this. You can get a handyman to do that. It doesn't take a roofer and it doesn't take thousands of dollars to do that. But if it's a major issue with the roof, regardless, the current owner is the one responsible for fixing it.
Yep.
So that's why knowing these things up front is what's important, knowing it during the option period so that you can address it, not after the option period is over. It's too late then.
Yeah.
You need to do it before you go into contract or during the option period, obviously. So in answer to your question, it's about having the conversation at the right time with the client. And it's not a deal breaker. Just because the roof has an issue, it doesn't mean anything. It just means we have to fix it. So let's just figure out how to fix it.
Absolutely. Or you could have a painter like mine that's doing exterior painting on a listing that we're getting teed up, and he texts me a picture because they're doing stuff on the fascia. And he said, you need to call a roofer to replace these 3 missing shingles. I'm like, thank you. I'm on it. So I'm like, thank you for my painter at least teeing me up and being able to do that. Yeah. We've got 3 minutes left though. The one thing that is also going to change the landscape for a lot of us, even as just individual homeowners, is deductibles. Can you talk about that just for a second?
I can. They are changing. Well, every home policy has more than one deductible, typically speaking.
Right.
They have a separate deductible for wind and hail claims, and then another deductible for everything else. Yep. And farmers, we have even another one for tropical cyclone, which is another way to say hurricane. That's really for the Texas coast. They have their own hurricane deductible.
Luckily, that hasn't come to DFW just yet.
Thank goodness. Yeah, not yet. It's just a bad rainstorm when it gets here. But so wind and hail deductibles in North Texas, not in Austin and South, in North Texas, the minimum that people will even sell you is going up. It's like farmers is up to 1.5%. Okay. And that's only if you have auto with us. If you just get a home with us, it's 2%. And I just had a client who will not move his auto because we're more expensive. And he's got a big old house. His home policy was $2.1 million. And he took a 2% deductible on it, $44,000 almost, wind and hail deductible. And we told him, we don't know if this is a good idea. He said, no, because our price was good because there's no roof coverage. It's $44,000 deductible. And he took it. Because it's cheap. He wanted to pay a cheap price. He got a cheap price. And we explained it to him over and over again. So that's happening on your policy, even if you're not buying a house. Yeah. And then if you are buying a house, you got to understand that it may be a 1.5%, it may be a 2% deductible. So if you have a $600,000 dwelling coverage policy, it may be a $12,000 wind and hail deductible or a $9,000 wind and hail deductible. It probably is. It's not maybe. Yeah. It probably is.
Yeah.
Because everyone is trying to reduce risk. So that's what's going on right now.
So those are other things that need to be discussed and taken into consideration. So no more playing Russian roulette like I like to change my wind and hail deductible different times of the season. I'm like, 2%. Okay, go back down to 1%. It's like, but hey, it's
prudent, right?
It's what you do to sit there and try, but I never think twice about staying with you guys.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's not just blind loyalty. That's proving I saw how you handled yourselves in 2019. I saw how everybody handled themselves in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how you guys handle my personal business and my client's business. And so that's all I need. I don't need to sit there and put myself in a exposed mitigated risk, unmitigated risk situation by going somewhere else just to shop it. So I implore everyone who is sitting here probably sad and putting their hands over their face. That's one more thing we have to think about. And okay, Sherry's giving you a compliment, which I don't get even that often. Todd, you are terribly informative. And I mean, terribly.
Not all terrible. And
yes.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it, Sherry.
Just kidding. So appreciate the information and professionalism. And that's what we want to continue to do is align with partners like you guys at MetroTex, Todd. And so you can bring the education to the public, to our agents, to our affiliate partners. And so I employ roofers to get connected with the Todd Campbell agency because you guys, your reputation precedes yourself. And everybody should be aligning with you. And again, appreciate how you handle yourself, how my dear friend Matt Bird handles.
Matt is the insurance dynamo, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys, Ashley. Your support and our partner support in this town is unbelievable, and we will do anything for you guys. So helping clients is the easy part for us. We just want to make y'all look good because we know that that's how we can help. So we very, very much appreciate your support.
Well, we've created an awesome ecosystem. So we will make sure to post the Todd Campbell Farmers Agency information into the chat so you guys can reach out to them directly. If anybody has any questions, of course, you know where to find us. And Todd, thank you for taking your evening to talk about all things insurance.
My pleasure.
So riveting and so exciting. But you know what? Somebody's got to do it, and we're glad it's you. So,
thank you so much. Thank you.
Till the next time, and hopefully it's not after a catastrophic loss.
That's right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.